Hey guys, welcome back to the board meeting. Today I'm going to bring you a little bit of board game news. I don't talk about board game news very often. I don't talk about usually new upcoming games. I don't talk about games that are on Kickstarter or that got announced. I don't really usually do this sort of thing unless something has been announced that has struck a chord with me, struck my fancy a little bit, and something has caught my attention that got announced, and that is the new Horrified game, Horrified World of Monsters. This is the fourth Horrified game that has been announced so far, and it's caught my attention for a couple different reasons that has kind of set it apart from the other Horrifieds, and I'll get into that in a little bit here. Now, for Horrified, if you don't know what Horrified is a cooperative pick up and deliver sort of game that they've sort of made a system for these games. And there's three of these games out already. They started with Horrified Universal Monsters, then they went to the American Monsters, then the last one came out was the Greek Monsters. And like I said, it's a pick up and deliver cooperative game. You're going to be going around the board, picking up these items and using these items to defeat different monsters for each of these games. Each of these games comes with, I believe, 6 different monsters. And each of these monsters, how you defeat them and how you're going about with them, they come with a unique puzzle for that particular monster. And that is what really intrigues me about Horrified. I really like the puzzles in these different monsters, and it comes with that variability because each of these games, if you're playing on easy mode, you're playing 2 of them. If you're playing on normal, it's 3. On legendary, it's 4. So you're not playing with all of the monsters every single time. So all of these games are going to switch up depending on which monsters you are playing as. So not a lot of games are going to feel similar to one another because the monsters really switch up that game. You're also playing as these individual heroes that you're going to get special powers for. Sort of feels like a little bit of a pandemic system in that. Now, for the new Horrified game, the Horrified World of Monsters, I'm just going to read off a quick description on BGG that was put on there. And this game has been, I saw this game months ago, but they didn't have any descriptions. They didn't have any pictures. Finally, they put up a description, put up pictures, and that's why I want to talk about it. So I'm just going to read off the description for quick, so it's just a couple paragraphs. So, Horrified World of Monsters is a standalone game that features gameplay similar to 2019's Horrified, and in this cooperative game, you'll face off against the Riddling Sphinx, the Reclusive Yeti, the Ravenous Yangshi, and the Great Old One itself, Cthulhu. Each monster presents a unique challenge, and you can face them individually or in combination with players pooling their unique skills to overcome puzzle-like obstacles inspired by monstrous legends and lore to gather tokens, protect citizens, and avoid attacks. The inclusion of Cthulhu brings the Horrified line its first multi-phase puzzle, with one puzzle in the realm of World of Monsters and one in Cthulhu's realm. Horrified World of Monsters includes rules for mixing and matching the monsters in this game with those in Horrified Greek Monsters. Now, a couple things jumped out for me when I read this description. First, there's only 4 different monsters in this, so this is a smaller version of Horrified. Secondly, they talked about Cthulhu, which they said it's a 2-part sort of monster. So that makes me think maybe when you're playing Cthulhu against Cthulhu, you're only playing against Cthulhu instead of mixing him with other monsters, which would make sense because Cthulhu is the big giant bad guy. And so how are you going to verse Cthulhu and the Yeti? There's a big difference, big gap between those two. So I'm interested how you're going to play against Cthulhu in this one. But the most interesting thing to me in this is that they said you can mix and match it with the Greek Monsters version. And before that, you've never been able to mix and match these games with the previous games. And that is something that Horrified fans have been calling for since this game came out in 2019. That we've been calling for expansions for the original, and we want to mix and match all these monsters, because if you have all 3, you'd have 18 different monsters that you can play, and if you can mix and match them, that would be great. But this one says you can mix it with the 3rd version of Horrified, the Greek Monsters edition. And I kind of figure they were doing something when I saw how the Greek Monsters edition was compared to the previous 2. Now, how the previous 2 worked is the players would act and do their thing, similar to, the third one. But when it came to the monster phase, you flip over a card and a specific monster would be named, basically. Like, oh, Dracula is going to get activated. They use the specific icons for that specific monster. This is Bigfoot's icon, so Bigfoot is going to activate. When you play the third edition, the Greek Monsters edition, the monster cards, when you flip over those, they show symbols on them. And they're not specific symbols for specific monsters, but all the monsters have 3 symbols on them. And if that symbol is on that one of those monster cards, those monsters activate with that particular symbol. So it's not like in the third one, when you're versing the Minotaur, it doesn't have a Minotaur symbol. The Minotaur might have like a torch symbol and a sword symbol and something else. When you flip over that monster card, it just shows one of those symbols. And if your monster has it, that monster activates then. So I could see that they were kind of trying to build off of something here. So now when they bring the Horrified World of Monsters, I'm assuming they're going to use that same sort of system where each of the monsters is going to have one of the or 3 different symbols on them. So that's going to be a lot easier to incorporate an expansion sort of sense of it, instead of having symbols for individual monsters themselves, like in the first 2. So I kind of saw this one coming, but I wasn't sure. I was hoping. And they finally did it. They finally did what fans have been asking for 5 years now. So I'm really excited for that. One thing I am hoping for that they do here coming in the future, I hope they sort of reprint the first and second game and change the system that those monsters are using into this new system that I'm assuming this is how this is going to work. And I'm hoping they do reprint those first 2 and just change those symbols so that they can be incorporated as well with these monsters. I think that would be awesome. That would be a dream come true for me. I am a huge fan of Horrified. It's one of my favorite cooperative games. It's a brilliant system. It's simple enough, but it's fun enough. It's engaging. The puzzles are fun. There is something to complain about Horrified, though, for the last 2 games, though. The rule books for the last 2 games have been horrible. Not in the sense that you don't know how to play the game. It's the sense of how to place the monsters and how they activate. A lot of the monsters have not had specific, like, clear rulings of how they work specifically. And especially for the last one, the Greek Monsters, which is probably my favorite because of the theme, but it's the worst rule book because for several of the monsters in the Greek Monsters edition, I'm like, I don't really know exactly how this one acts specifically, and we have to make a group decision to interpret the rule book. It's never great when you have to interpret a rule book and be like, I think it's probably like this, and I know a lot of people have had issues with it. And that's one thing I hope they clear up in this edition. I would love for them to reprint the new rule books for the last 2 to clear up some things. That would be great because a lot of them are just not that clear. But that's kind of nitpicking for me. Of the one thing that I nitpick when it comes to the Horrified games is the rule books have never been great except for the first one. The Universal Monsters was great, and that's one that comes out a lot still. But yeah, that is the news for the Horrified World of Monsters. Just one that has caught my fancy, that has caught my attention, so I wanted to talk to you about it for just a few minutes. And yeah, that will finish this video. Make sure to comment down below. What are your thoughts about the new Horrified and apparently this new system that they're going to try to make? And are they going to continue to expand and add more games and more monsters so that you can just mix and match them, which would be great if they had just had a big plug and play sort of game system for this system. Yeah, but if you did enjoy this video, make sure to like and subscribe to see more weekly content from me, Shane, at the board meeting in the future. Hope you all have an amazing day. Take care.